Hey everyone, what's up? How's it going? This is Finite MTG, and today I'm bringing you a draft log of a DMR draft that I did before. So Dominaria Remastered, pretty fun format. Ended up doing pretty well in this, especially toward the end. So I'm excited for this format to return, which I think it'll be doing still in the first half of 2023. And yeah, with that out of the way, let's dive into the picks. So one thing that I've been told about this format is that Storm is really strong, and particularly Empty the Warrens is really powerful. So that's something that's going to be on my radar. And here, I think regardless, I'm just going to be taking Fact or Fiction. So blue is the color that you would want to pair with red if you were going to play Storm, and Fact or Fiction is just some excellent card advantage. It's a really powerful spell. If you haven't cast it before, I would definitely recommend it. It's really, really difficult for your opponent to create piles that are ideally split, and then you still get to choose, which cards you want. So pack one, pick one, pretty easy FOF. All right, in pack one, pick two. So I'm not really much of a Storm player, but we do have an Empty the Warrens here, and since I have it on good authority that it is such a strong archetype, I figure, well, I might as well pick it up here and see how things go. It's going to be quite a bit different from something like Vintage Cube, where there are some super powerful cards going around like Black Lotus, but here you do have multiples. That's kind of the difference between Storm in a format like this and something like Vintage Cube. Not to mention that Storm and Vintage Cube, you're playing against very strong decks, whereas Dominaria Remastered, not every opponent is going to have a super strong deck. And speaking of multiples, pack one, pick three, here we are able to pick up another Empty the Warrens. So the plan is really coming together so far. We have our FOF, we have our empties. Now we just need ways to generate mana, increase storm count, things like that. We're going to be looking for other things like FOF as well to create card advantage. All right, in pack one, pick four, I believe here I just decided to take Impulse. So Grape Shot, despite being a Storm card, is not a particularly good one. It's really hard to actually kill an opponent with Grape Shot. And so this ends up kind of turning into like a clunky removal spell a lot of the time, which is not necessarily something you want to be doing. There's like Coal Stoker, which I don't think is very high priority, and yeah, really nothing super exciting. So Impulse is going to be my pick here. It'll help me dig toward the best cards in my deck. All right, in pack one, pick five. Well, we already have a FOF, but we're going to be looking for even more card advantage, so why not a Deep Analysis? This is a pretty nice card. Just being able to draw potentially 4 cards can be really, really strong. It's not super likely that you're going to end up decking your opponent with this, but it's something that can happen in this format too. And yeah, just a nice way of churning through your deck. And if you're worried about paying the 3 life, sometimes just drawing the first 2 cards can be enough to get there. Okay, pack one, pick 6. So this is already a pretty ugly one. That's kind of the downside with forcing Storm. So it's not exactly forcing to get like pack 1, pick 2 empty into pack 1, pick 3 empty, but you really need the other cards for the Storm deck to come, or you're going to be taking a bunch of random crap like Dragon Engine. I think that's what I decided to take here. Some other notable cards in the pack, I think this Gargoyle is pretty nice. I'm a big fan of Primal Boost as well, but we're not really able to do anything like that. And so maybe just taking a 3-drop that can gum up the ground a little bit and prolong the game is something that's going to be helpful for us here. Pack one, pick 7, there's just plain nothing for us here, so I think I ended up deciding to hate draft an Elvish Aberration. And again, you can kind of see here that I'm just not used to forcing Storm in any format, trying to see if I can jump ship, if at all possible. And I mean, what is there for the Storm deck though? Like, you're never playing Lightning Reflexes, so maybe you take this very bad land that doesn't really help at all. So I think it's not unreasonable to just take the Aberration out of the pack and see, like, well, we'll see if we get there in the next picks. All right, pack 1, pick 8. I believe here I just took an Aquamoeba, kind of for the same reasoning as that Dragon Engine, thinking, well, I mean, I have some cards that are pretty nice for Storm. I guess if nothing else, this is cheaper than Dragon Engine, and yeah, it still blocks reasonably well. So just taking cheap blockers, really not where you want to be in like a dedicated Storm deck. But the other thing about the Empty the Warrens combo is you don't have to kill your opponent in one turn with like a Brain Freeze or Tendrils of Agony, the way in Vintage Cube that kind of thing often works. In this format, you can just create a bunch of goblins with Empty the Warrens and then kill your opponent across a couple turns. All right, pack 1, pick 9. I believe here I decided to take a Jalum Tome. And yeah, I think my thought process was if I'm in a really slow or grindy matchup, this is some card filtering that can help me look for the best or most impactful cards in my deck. And if nothing else, it's at least castable. Pack 1, pick 10. Here I believe I picked up an Impulse. So this is already Impulse number 2, which, not a bad thing, but at some point we are going to be too slow for spinning our wheels all game. We do need to find a little bit more gas or action so we can actually have the cards that we want to find with the Impulse, the Frantic Searches, maybe the High Tides, things like that, that can help generate mana and Storm count and actually combo off. All right, pack 1, pick 11. I think here I just took Oversold Cemetery. I don't remember if this was worth anything at the time, given like the border or anything like that, but if it wasn't, then Dragon Blood is probably a fine option as well. And then pack 1, pick 12. Here I get a Coal Stoker, which it's a fine card. It's really nothing super exciting or special for a Storm deck, but it's not unplayable. And it is clearly kind of designed to fit into the Storm deck, since it only costs you net 1 mana. So. And then pack 1, pick 13. Here's that Grape Shot. Yeah, we just really don't want or need this thing necessarily. Maybe if we play against a deck with a lot of X1s, like multiple Savannah Lions or something, then suddenly Grape Shot could be pretty reasonable, but really not a big fan of it for the main deck. Pack 1, pick 14, we get an Undying Rage, and pack 1, pick 15, we get a Plains. All right. Pack 2, pick 1 here. We do open a couple pretty exciting cards at Uncommon, and one of them is Lightning Rift. This is a really messed up card. Not super difficult to build your deck around. But at this point I'm thinking, well, feels like my picks are really kind of taxed already. I can only play blue and red if I want to have a streamlined Storm deck. One of the things that's important to note about this format is that there's really no mana fixing except for the layers. And we do have Slice and Dice here, and Slice and Dice is very, very powerful. It's really good against decks with Empty the Warrens. You can also cycle it and just choose no to the May ability. And then sometimes that 4 damage mode is going to be pretty critical as well. So thinking about kind of the fail rate of Lightning Rift here was my reason for taking Slice and Dice. All right, in pack 2, pick 2. So unfortunately here, still not really seeing anything for the Storm deck. Good news though is we are able to pick up a Solar Blast. It's a pretty decent removal spell and a nice one to cycle as well. Kind of a better hate card against X1s potentially than Grape Shot because it is a little more flexible. All right, pack 2, pick 3, and already things are just not looking great here. For the Storm deck, you really need very specific cards, or they're just going to be a lot of kind of do-nothings. So here I ended up deciding to take Veiled Serpent, thinking, well, it's not super dissimilar to Impulse in that I can just cash it in for another card, but it can also block if necessary. It's not going to be attacking super often if it's in my main deck, but it's a good sideboard option as well. Pack 2, pick 4. Yeah, so at this point I'm really kind of panicking, thinking, how am I going to be able to get there? Really doesn't seem like I'm getting the cards that I need for the Storm deck. Decided here to take a Hermetic Study, knowing that blue-red is also kind of supporting Hermetic Study, Quicksilver Dagger, that kind of nonsense. And here, there's another impulse, but we already have 2 impulses. And at this point, I'm thoroughly considering, abandoning ship. And there's a Valduk in the pack to go with that Hermetic Study that I just picked up. So I'm thinking, well, I mean, Valduk is a pretty powerful card. Just making a bunch of 3/1s is something that can kill people pretty effectively in this format, though. This is really a Boros archetype more than Izzet. And so, yeah, I did kind of stray from the Storm path here and take the Valduk. Pack 2, pick 6. I think here I just decided to take this Assault and Battery. Assault for us is just, sorcery speed shock. Nothing too special, but decent interaction if nothing else. And we do have that Forest Cycler if something weird happens where we want to be able to use battery as well. In pack 2, pick 7, there's just nothing in this pack. I think I might have taken Wall of Junk here. I don't remember. But yeah, regardless, the cards in this pack were not going to contribute in a meaningful or helpful way to our deck. Whether we're trying to play a Storm deck or a deck with Valduk, I don't want to be like main phasing a Lightning Reflexes or something. All right, in pack 2, pick 8. I think here I might have taken Dodecapod, just like a pretty reasonable body. Every now and then there will be an opponent with discard stuff, and sometimes you can hose them pretty badly, though it's not very likely to come up. This is mainly just colorless Hill Giant. And pack 2, pick 9. Let's see, what did I take here? Looks like I picked up a Denizen of the Deep. Not incredibly unreasonable. I already have a Jalum Tome. Very unlikely that I would want a second one. And 8 mana, 11/11. Not the most exciting place to be, but maybe in a certain matchup or something, it helps. Pack 2, pick 10 is a lot of Orzhov cards, so we're going to take Leaden Fists. Pretty decent card for the sideboard, but overall kind of a clunky one. Not my favorite effect for sure. Pack 2, pick 11. I took an Ember Beast here. We don't need 2 Walls of Junk. And yeah, this thing's just going to be a fine blocker for us if we're able to put one other creature into play. In pack 2, pick 12. I think I might have... Okay, I took Undying Rage. I think it's also reasonable to hate draft Sandstorm. Just thinking about how Sandstorm is really the only clean answer to Empty the Warrens at common. And that means that... a lot of the time when your opponent has green mana up and you have Empty the Warrens, you shouldn't necessarily be attacking with everything, but it's also not super easy to play around Sandstorm from the empty position. All right, pack 2, pick 13. I believe here we just took a Goblin Turncoat. Pack 2, pick 14. I think we took another one. And last up here we get a Swamp. So we really need a lot of help going into pack 3 here. All right, and we do get some help. Pack 3, pick 1. So we have a couple untap effects in Turnabout and Frantic Search. At this point, I'm not really sure what to expect in terms of whether Storm is open. It seems like Storm is not particularly open. If it were open, I think I would try to wheel the Turnabout. But the thing about Frantic Search here is that it does something pretty similar to Turnabout in terms of mana generation. So Turnabout is, of course, much easier to net you mana, whereas Frantic Search is mana neutral, but you do get to filter through some junk. And we do have a lot of junk in our deck, some of it more literal than others. So I decided to take the Frantic Search and just kind of hope that maybe Turnabout comes around somehow. In pack 3, pick 2, we get another card that is nice for generating mana and Storm Count, which is Peregrine Drake. Been looking for something like this for a while. There's another Empty the Warrens in the pack, which is very nice, and it would be good to just get as many empties as possible. Though at this point, we only have one effect that untaps lands, and we just picked it up last pick. So I think it's pretty reasonable to try to get more of that before going in on more empties. All right, pack 3, pick 3. Here I believe I took an Avarax, which is really not the most exciting card when there's a Lightning Rift in the pack, though we don't really have any cyclers to get this thing going. And Avarax is another way we can potentially close out games if it comes to it. Of course, it's not going to be our first choice, but Avarax is a pretty good late game, especially if you can get 3 or more. Alright, pack 3, pick 4. Here I believe I decided to go with Aquamoeba. So just once again looking for more cheap blockers. Avon Fisher, not a bad card, but 4 mana does mean it's a little on the expensive side. Every now and then this will contribute to storm count in addition to blocking. Pack 3, pick 5. I think here I took another Solar Blast over like a random Obsessive Search. I know I didn't take the land. Yeah. And so Solar Blast, just a good removal spell and interactive card in general. Sometimes if you get your opponent pretty low on life with a bunch of Goblin tokens, Solar Blast can close out the game. In pack 3, pick 6, well, there's another Avarax, but of course we can't take this. We finally got a High Tide. So High Tide is one of the most important cards for the Storm deck. It is uncommon, so it's not super easy to get. We only have 2 ways of untapping lands to really net mana with the High Tide, but this card is just really, really important when you're trying to combo off with the Storm deck. So really happy to get a High Tide here. Now we have pretty good shot at actually getting there. Pack 3, pick 7. Let's see. Looks like here I took a Juggernaut. Kind of interesting to see a Wrath of God going around so late. Juggernaut not going to be super helpful for us necessarily, but Goblin Matron really isn't doing anything for us either. And yeah, just nothing I'm excited to main deck here for Storm. Pack 3, pick 8. I believe here I just took a Street Wraith, which is a little bit strange. It's just kind of pay 2 life cycle every single time for us, which is going to be easier to cycle a lot of the time than like a Histrodon. Though this is not an ideal card to put into your Storm deck by any means. Paying 2 life can actually be pretty painful when you're not really contributing board presence and just maybe getting beaten down. Pack 3, pick 9. Here we're able to get an Obsessive Search, and this is pretty decent. We have that Jalum Tome. We also have Frantic Search, so we do have a couple ways to madness this, get a little bit of value. And if nothing else, it's just a cheap spell to build Storm count. Pack 3, pick 10. Kind of the same story here with Overmaster. Another cantrip. Not super relevant that it prevents our next spell from being countered, but every now and then there's a chance it could come up. Literal counterspell is in the format, though counterspell is not traditionally super good against cards with Storm, unless I really tap out. Alright, pack 3, pick 11. Looks like here I decided to pick up a Subterranean Scout. So this thing is not super relevant, but the rest of these cards are just not going to make my deck, and this is another cheap card, could make somebody else's deck. Here I think I decided to go with another Ember Beast. They do work well together. Pack 3, pick 13, took a Spectral Lynx, and there's just nothing in that pack. In pack 3, pick 14, we're pretty lucky and we're able to get an Avarax here, so we could now play both Avaraxes. Avaraces, and then last up we get a land. Alright, so this is how we ended up building the deck. 18 lands, not something you're unhappy to run in Storm when it is so critical to hit land drops, and a lot of my spells were very, very bad anyway, or at least off plan. I do have the 2 impulses, High Tide with a couple 1-mana cantrips. I still have double Empty. Now I have double Avarax, fortunately, Slice and Dice, some Burn, and yeah. That, let's jump into the matches. Alright, here we are for game 1 of round number 1, and we're able to keep this hand. Pretty slow on, opponent leads on Mountain, and we're going to see what they're up to here. So they're on red-black, so they could potentially be on some kind of Goblin or Zombie aggro deck. We just get to run out our Aquamoeba. They play a Dedapult. Now, it looks like I just decided to cast a Veiled Serpent, thinking that the 4/4 blocker could potentially be helpful for me. And the opponent goes for a Duress, and they are able to take our Slice and Dice. we decide to, yeah, just go impulse for an Avarex here, and then if we find a mountain, our Avarex comes online and then finds our other Avarex. Oh, and now we're in a funny spot because I think, yeah, so I think that I could have used Frantic Search here to play the Avarax, but it looks like I got kind of locked in on using Peregrine Drake to do that instead. And yeah, they just go for an FTK, and I'm pretty happy about this because that stuff doesn't matter. They also terrored something else. Let's see, how did this happen? Looks like, okay, just started with the Overmaster, found the mountain. Oh yes, and then now it looks like I went Peregrine Drake into the Avarax. So we had our little mini storm here where we didn't actually storm off, but we did empty our hand. And I don't remember whether, looks like the Aquamoeba stayed home. We offered the trade with the FTK, they didn't take it, which was pretty big for us. And they attack with the FTK, which is pretty interesting. And yeah, we do just go ahead and block. They have to fire this off. But they're at 13 life here now, facing down the Avarices. So yeah, this is working out pretty well. We pitch a land to get in a couple extra damage with the Aquamoeba. And the opponent has a Siege Gang Commander, which is pretty darn scary. Very, very powerful card. Dedapult, not really, well, pulling its weight, but we'll see what happens after casting this Frantic Search. We do find the Obsessive. It's pretty nice. So we don't really discard a card there, and we do get to dig one deeper. And it's just a land, unfortunately, but we are able to go for this attack. And I think I pitched this mountain to the Aquamoeba, so opponent goes down to 1. They're left with 2 goblins versus Aquamoeba. And they have a Ridgetop Raptor as well, and a Festering Goblin. And so yeah, Dedapult here deals 2 damage to any target by sacking a zombie, and then when this thing dies, it gives -1/-1. So they can cash in the Festering Goblin for Aquamoeba whenever they want. So we here just have to stay on defense, and I have a few outs here, a few ways to deal them the last key point of damage. And that's pretty much what we're playing toward here. So the opponent goes for this attack with a 2/1 Double Striker. We could block. If we do block, they're going to fire off their Festering Goblin. But the thing is, we're taking 4 damage right now. If they just fired off their Festering Goblin anyway, we'd be taking 6. So the clock is significantly slower here. Oh yeah, and they go for this Howl from Beyond. So they do speed things up here for sure. We cycle here, paying 2 life. Now I'm dead on board. It was kind of a tough decision about whether to cycle. But again, if they just sack this, then they have 6 right here. So nothing I can do about that. It's one of those spots where the Histrodon would have been much better. But somehow they do decide to let us go to block here, which is amazing because, I mean, we do have a few outs from this position with the opponent at 1 life. And we find one. Assault. Sorcery Speed Shock off the top when we should have been dead. So fortunately that, Festering Goblin was pretty merciful that game. Alright, here we are for game 2. We have a pretty weird hand. It's decent, but nothing too special. Opponent has some Festering Goblin beatdown, and they managed to go for the 1 mana discard 1 into our Obsessive Search, which is pretty amazing for us. And they have a missed land drop, and now we have Aquamoeba. So this should be pretty good for us, even if we don't do anything too crazy this game. It looks like I just went for Jalum Tome. The opponent has a Subterranean Scout. Just decides to attack. Sure. And then I think here, yeah, okay, it looks like I decided to just pass. And I'm pretty close to building up to a decent empty. Nothing amazing, but I can just FOF here end of turn, and then that sets me up pretty well. So the opponent gives me something. I I think I took the, I don't remember which pile. I'm gonna guess I took the top pile. Yeah. Okay, and then now this should give me a pretty nice empty. So we get to go high tide for starters, and then I think frantic search. Yep, and then just pitch some stuff. And then I think I get to go coal stoker into empty here. I think I even have mana left for something else. I don't know if I had impulse mana or not. Looks like I probably did. Yeah, okay, impulse. Oh, and then I find the the shock as well, which is even a little bit more. So now we get to go. Yeah, okay, there we go. So we get rid of the goblin, which is pretty annoying versus just our attackers in general, and we get to actually loot here with the Jalum Tome before finally casting this empty for a bunch of goblins. And the opponent now needs slice and dice. It's like the only possible answer for them here, and they don't have it. All right, here we are for round number 2 with the Storm deck, and pretty decent hand here. Get to be on the play. Opponent has Wild Growth. Oh, yeah, I think I remember some of what happened in this game. Opponent has Krosan Restorer, so they're really building up a lot of mana here, and we're just kind of sitting around not doing anything. And yeah, I think, what is this? It's a lot of mana. Yeah, Elvish Aberration comes down, and we're just kind of hanging out. Impulse for an island here, not even taking the empty, not an ideal position to be in. And yeah, here it looks like I just go Avarax, find my other Avarax. And the opponent now has Squirrel Nest, so they have Squirrel Nest plus Krosan Restorer, which is going to be very bad for me. And they have another Krosan Restorer, so now I have to somehow try to chew through this army of squirrels they're going to be able to make. And so my thinking here is, because Slice and Dice sort of helps me out, it cleans up any 1/1s they're making here. If I can just get them to block the Elvish Aberration onto the Avarax, then Slice and Dice is just going to take care of everything. So I decided I was going to go for that, and sure enough, they do block, very fortunately for me. So now I get to slice. They only get to make 1 squirrel here after this happens. Suddenly we're in pretty good shape. They play Urza's Blueprints, which was just a really, really slow effect for me. Interestingly, they leave Squirrel back. Not really sure why. And yeah, we just play our Avarax. We get to attack here. The opponent doesn't block. We get to pump. They're going to make another squirrel. They're going to draw a card. They get to draw another card. Looks like they do choose to pay the Echo here. They play Treva's Ruin. So now they have enough squirrels where they can triple block our Avarax, and since they haven't been attacking me, it does seem like that's going to be their plan. But we do have Solar Blast, so we're very happy if they're trying to triple block our Avarax. We can just cycle a Solar Blast, and then like Foff end of their turn, just trying to mess them up. The opponent goes for another Squirrel Nest. And then, yeah, we go for this Foff, and then I think this is just going to be pretty brutal. I don't remember what we took here. Okay, we took the 2 cards, draw, probably cycle Street Wraith to start, yep, and find the Frantic Search, which is huge. So now we just have like a ton of mana. I think we had enough to deploy our whole hand here. Opponent just takes the 3 damage. Now we get to High Tide. I think I start with just this Frantic Search. Looks like they have something here. I don't remember what. Oh, they just cycle, sure, because they have extra mana from High Tide. I don't remember what I did with this Deep Analysis. Might have discarded it. Looks like I did choose to discard it. I'm not sure whether or not that makes sense. At the time, I know I was doing the math on how much mana I have and that kind of thing. But we do get to flash it back here. And then now I think we still have mana for like Coal Stoker into double empty. I don't remember. We might have also had mana for Veiled Serpent. Yeah, we have lots of mana. So yeah, we have We do have mana for everything here. Now we get to empty. And empty again. So it does make sense not to have cast the Deep Analysis twice, because if I was able to do this and then I spent all my mana, then I would have been one short to do Deep Analysis twice in Coal Stoker into double empty. So we just make a ridiculous number of goblins from Empty the Warrens, and the opponent really needs their Sandstorm here against 26 goblin tokens. And they cycle Slippery Karst, and they just scoop. So this is an interesting spot because here we can actually afford to make an attack where we don't just lose all our goblin tokens to Sandstorm. And so in that sense, it might not make sense for the opponent to continue playing by showing me they don't have the Sandstorm, because, I don't know, then they're just going to die anyway. But I think in general here, when you have mana up like this, like, it's just a free roll to continue playing the game. See if your opponent doesn't go for a lethal attack. Again, not very likely in this spot in particular, but I don't know. It's free equity to keep playing the game, right? So, all right, here we are here for game 2 of round 2. And we have this hand, which is going to be good enough. Looks like I boarded in Leaden Fists. I think the idea was we can hit a Krosan Restorer with this. We can also hit the Aberration, the 4/5 with this. We have Impulse up now. Opponent goes for an Aberration cycle. And Wild Growth into a Restorer. And we get to Impulse for High Tide. And yeah, we're just already kind of comboing off here. Looks like we just decided to Assault and pass the turn. Opponent has a Bop, and we have Solar Blast, so we just have the very efficient way to answer that thing if we want, and not doing anything else here, so we might as well. Unfortunately, we do draw the second Avarax. It's kind of the problem with only playing 2 of these, but we are a Storm deck after all. We're not supposed to be an Avarax deck. And then the opponent has Urza's Blueprints. Again, very, very slow. We get to just jam another Avarax into play, hit them for 6. Opponent decides they are going to pay Echo. And I think here, oh yeah, here I went for something a little greedy, so I decided I wanted to see if I could try to threaten lethal, or like pretty close at least. Yeah, so I went for this, which is like pretty close to threatening lethal, and then also build Storm Count pretty nicely. Yeah, so they go for lull, which is annoying, but then we still have the ability to storm here with empty, and just put 10 goblins into play. And the opponent just like cycles 3 times here or whatever, mana wars a token. And I think here, oh yeah, here I just was like trying to go for maximum pumps on the Avarax, so I Peregrine Draked, which is fine, I think. And then I think I just sent everything here saying, you know, if you got the Sandstorm, then you got me. But this time, the opponent does not have the Sandstorm. They have a Primal Boost, so they get to trade for the Avarax and draw a card, but they are still going down to 2 life. And once again, they have to cycle a bunch of times, see if they can find a Sandstorm. And at this point, it's starting to look like they just don't have one in their deck. And we get to cycle our Street Wraith. I don't remember what I attacked with here. Is it everything again? If I did attack with everything, I don't think I was supposed to. Yeah, I actually think this is pretty bad. So I'm not really sure what my thinking was here, but yeah, from my position, you should not be attacking with all the goblins into a potential Sandstorm when you can kill the opponent very easily by just attacking with like 4 or something like that. So a little bit loose play on my part, probably a bit looser even than the opponent scooping the previous game. All right, here we are for round number 3. Here's game 1. And it looks like we win the die roll, and we have another pretty slow start here. That's kind of how this deck goes. Opponent's on Plains, which presumably is going to be a good matchup for us. I'm not sure there are too many aggressive decks that are going to be fast enough to stop us, but we'll find out. And then here I just get to play the Veiled Serpent. Note that I'm not playing either cantrip, just trying to save them for Storm Count for now. And the opponent does go for a Nomad Decoy here, so that's going to turn on our Serpent. I think I just Solar Blast that Decoy. Yeah, and so now we're just going to hang out with our 4/4 against their 2/2. They have a Juggernaut, which we can trade with our Serpent if we want to. And then I think now that we have 5 mana and an extra land in hand, I probably just wait one more turn here before trying to empty for some goblins. It's not going to be a very exciting empty, but still be decent. Opponent goes for a Swords, which is a bit of a problem for us. They hit us for 7. They have some kind of follow-up here. Yeah, they have Savannah Lions, not great versus Goblin tokens, and Spectral Links. So start by using our Sorcery Speed cantrip, and then yeah, it doesn't really change the plan here, so we're just going to be going for this empty. Nothing super exciting, just put 6/1/1s into play. But the opponent does go for this attack, and this is enough goblins to trade for everything but their Spectral Links, so we're going to do that. Can't trade for Regenerator, of course, and the opponent's down to 1 card, and we have Foff and Avarax in hand, so we get to start with the Avarax here, get the other one out of our deck, attack and pump. And we're in pretty good shape versus the Spectral Links. The opponent does not go for an attack, just holding up the regen. And I think, yeah, it looks like I went for, whoops, Deep Analysis here. And then, yeah, I guess I just passed. Now the plan is to use Foff end of their turn. They didn't go for an attack with the Spectral Links, kind of unsurprisingly. And now, yeah, we find some pretty anemic cards here. Looks like I picked the burn spell, and then I think, yeah, here we're just flashing back Deep Analysis, find an Aquamoeba, and we can just put a bunch of like mediocre creatures into play here. We're gonna assault the Javelineers so they can't finish off an X3. In addition to having the Lynx block, we're just gonna pass the turn here, and then next turn we can really start attacking. Yeah, the opponent finds a forest for some reason, and then just scoops. All right, here we are for game 2 of round 3. And here we have a decent hand. It's really not amazing, but you know, if we can hit some land drops, then everything should be okay. Opponent has Ication Javelineer, and just goes for an attack. Sure. They have Milliken. And then now I think this is pretty funny. So we're in kind of a rough spot here in terms of mana and land drops. The opponent goes for the attack here for 1. And I think here they have, yeah, Gerard's Verdict. So once again, we're discarding our Obsessive Search because the opponent is, or an opponent is having us do that. And we're going to pitch Deep Analysis as well because to flash it back, it's only 2 mana. So here the discard kind of works in our favor, and we're able to find a land drop here. I think we just flashback, or oh no, okay, so here I guess I cycled Solar Blast, gonna take their Milliken off the board, reduce their mana a little bit, and they're just gonna attack us for 1, play Phyrexian Rager, sure. And I think here I went Impulse, try to look for Island. Yeah. Impulse, we do find the Island. Play the Island, and then we're going to use the other Impulse. Opponent's just attacking for 3, sure. And they play a Debaser, which I think is fine. Impulse here, and I don't remember what I took. I might have taken the Slice and Dice, might have taken the Foff. Looks like I did take the Slice and Dice. And yeah, we just use our Deep Analysis here. And I don't remember what my plan was. I could have just played the Jalum Tome here. I don't remember what I was thinking, but I think I got a little too excited and just forgot about the Jalum Tome or something like that. Oh yeah, but now the opponent puts a Spirit Monger into play, and suddenly it makes sense why they're splashing green in their deck. And that's going to be pretty problematic for us, unless we find Assault Battery. So now I believe I have exact mana to clear their board and make a bunch of empty tokens after. So we're going to play every card in our hand, I think, except for maybe Solar Blast in one of the lands. We should still have a Jalum Tome in play. No reason for me to discard that last turn, but yeah, we get to go High Tide here into Peregrine Drake. So the Peregrine Drake does have to die, unfortunately. And then we get to go, I think, just right ahead for the Slice and Dice. Yep. And then there's 4 damage on the Spirit Monger, so now we get to use the Assault. And we have exact mana left for this Empty the Warren, so clean up the board really nicely. Put 10 1/1s into play. Opponent's going to go for... what did they do here? Like cycled... I'm not sure what they did. They might have used a an Undead Gladiator. Yeah, they did. Okay. And I guess they just cycled it again. Yeah, they did. Okay. So back to our turn. Now we draw Overmaster, which we're just going to play right away. And here is a spot where I don't think you can really play around Sandstorm super well. I mean, I guess in theory I could have attacked with like 5 of these, but the opponent is at 20. I don't want to give them additional turns to try to find an answer. So even though they do have the forest up, I am just going to make them have it here, which I think is probably reasonable. And yeah, opponent's just going for some Undead Gladiator stuff, and then once again they scoop. So kind of like game 1 of the previous match, this is a spot where I don't think you're supposed to concede. Like, you already know that I didn't play around Sandstorm, so it's like easier to understand how you know, like from the opponent's perspective, they might think that even like bluffing Sandstorm isn't going to be enough for them to live, but like the board really has changed here. Now I have 10 goblins to their 9 life. I also have Solar Blast in hand, so I'm really kind of incentivized to only attack with like maybe 6 goblins and then try to get lethal that way. So from their perspective, like you know, it might look a little bleak, but I actually think that once again, it's just kind of free to stick it out one more turn. But yeah, that's Storm and DMR. Even if you really don't get there in terms of the draft, or even if it feels like things are not going the way you wanted them to, Empty the Warrens is just not a very easy card to answer in this format. So yeah, it can be pretty oppressive. And yeah, I believe that is my first ever 3060 with Storm and in any format. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed that one, and we'll see you next time.